Football managers spend years mastering tactics, man management and pressure, but nothing truly prepares them for sitting in front of 20 journalists after a humiliating defeat while cameras record every twitch of their face. And that is why football press conferences occasionally descend into absolute madness. Sometimes it is anger, sometimes paranoia, sometimes pure ego, and sometimes a manager completely loses the plot in front of the entire world. And honestly, there's only one place to start. The undisputed recent champion of this is Florentino Perez. Los Blancos had just endured a catastrophic fortnight. They had surrendered the La Liga title to Barcelona, and reports were surfacing of a locker room in total civil war. Valverde and Tchouaméni had reportedly engaged in a physical altercation that sent the Uruguayan to the hospital, while Antonio Rüdiger and Álvaro Carreras were also at each other's throats. The media arrived at the Valdebebas training complex expecting a resignation or, at the very least, an apology. Instead, they got an election. Perez announced he was calling for fresh elections 3 years early, a move that sounds democratic until you realize that Real Madrid's restrictive laws mean almost no one else can realistically qualify to run against him. He then spent the next 60 minutes systematically dismantling every journalist in the room. He called out reporters by name, labeling their coverage ugly and accusing them of a coordinated campaign to destroy the club's interests. When asked about his players literally knocking each other out, he shrugged it off as normal behavior that happens every season. He deflected blame onto Barcelona, calling them cheats, and ended the marathon session leaving a room full of shell-shocked media members wondering if they had just witnessed a press conference or a political rally. While Perez used high-level political deflection to protect his empire, other managers have preferred a more industrial approach to their insults. Enter Joe Kinnear. In 2008, he was the surprise appointment at Newcastle United, and he decided to introduce himself by setting fire to everything. Within seconds of sitting down for his first major briefing, he singled out Simon Bird of the Daily Mirror and leveled a 4-letter insult that you can probably guess. Kinnear didn't stop there. He proceeded to swear over 50 times in a 5-minute opening salvo, targeting journalists like Niall Hickman and telling them they were out of order. The sheer volume of 4-letter expletives was staggering, even by football's rugged standards. He accused the media of lacking the balls to be managers and created a toxic environment that defined his brief, chaotic tenure. If Kinnear was a sledgehammer, our next entry is more of a strange biological riddle. Nigel Pearson found himself in the middle of a tense relegation scrap with Leicester City in 2015 when he decided to turn a post-match inquiry into a lesson in zoology. Following a loss to Chelsea, Pearson claimed his players were battling against criticism and negativity. When journalist Ian Baker innocently asked for clarification on what specific criticism he was referring to, Pearson snapped. "Have you been on holiday for 6 months?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. He then delivered the line that would define his career. "If you don't know the answer to that question, then I think you are an ostrich. Your head must be in the sand." Pearson leaned in, asking if the reporter was flexible enough to get his head in the sand, before calling him daft and stupid. It was a bizarre, uncomfortable spectacle that saw a Premier League manager bullying a reporter over a metaphor that didn't even logically apply to the situation.
Hey fam, this is your chance to build the jersey collection you've been waiting for. The Goal 90 bundle deal is live. Buy 2 jerseys and get 10% off. Buy 3 and get 15% off. Buy 4 and get a massive 25% off. Club kits, country kits, retro classics, pick your favourites and save big. And yes, every order comes with free worldwide shipping. The deal runs only until the end of May. Goal 90 bundle deal. Buy more, save more. Shop now at Goal 90 Shop.
Sometimes though, you don't need to call someone an animal to make the room uncomfortable. You just need to ask one simple, unsettling question. In 2013, Arsene Wenger was the picture of professorial calm until a question about his contract extension ahead of a Champions League tie with Bayern Munich hit a nerve. Wenger, usually the most articulate man in the room, suddenly became fixated on the idea that wrong information was being leaked to harm the club. In the middle of his defense, he stopped, turned his gaze toward journalist Sam Wallace and asked, "Why do you look at me?" Wallace, understandably confused, replied, "Because it's your press conference." It was a moment of pure psychological tension. Wenger wasn't yelling, but the intensity of his stare and the perceived paranoia behind the question created an atmosphere of profound unease. While Wenger struggled with the weight of the gaze, Avram Grant decided to handle his frustration by removing his voice entirely. In 2008, despite Chelsea beating Everton to stay in the title race, Grant appeared for his post-match duties in a state of silent protest. Over the course of 5 minutes and 39 seconds, he offered a grand total of 137 words. He answered almost every question with, "I don't know," "Yes," "No," or his personal favourite, "I have nothing to say." Grant sat there with a blank expression, forcing the journalists to work double time to get even a syllable out of him. Of course, no list of press conference chaos would be complete without the master himself, Jose Mourinho. First, there was his special one introduction at Chelsea. "Please don't call me arrogant, but I'm European champion and I think I'm a special one." Then came the football heritage rant at Manchester United, a 12-minute monologue where he used historical data to explain why losing to Sevilla was actually a normal occurrence for a club in United's position. But the pinnacle was his respect press conference following a 3-0 loss to Tottenham. Visibly agitated, Mourinho held up 3 fingers to the room. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. 3-0, but it also means 3 premierships, and I won more premierships alone than the other 19 managers together. 3 for me and 2 for them. Respect, respect, respect. He then stormed out of the room, leaving the respect mantra hanging in the air like a dare. It was classic Mourinho. Defensive, arrogant, and perfectly calculated to shift the narrative away from a bad result and onto himself. Trapattoni's brand of multilingual rage found a modern successor in Gennaro Gattuso. During his time managing OFI Crete in 2014, Gattuso became a global meme during a press conference where he grew increasingly enraged with his translator. Launching into a tirade that blended English, Italian, and Greek, he delivered the iconic line, "Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit." He slammed the table, defended his players with terrifying intensity, and essentially acted as his own hype man. It was pure, unfiltered Gattuso, a man who managed exactly how he played, with his heart on his sleeve and a permanent scowl on his face. Finally, we come to the man who transcended the press conference entirely and moved into the realm of philosophy, Eric Cantona. In 1995, after his infamous kung fu kick on a fan, the world waited for an explanation. Cantona sat down, took a sip of water, and uttered the most famous analogy in football history. When the seagulls follow the trawler, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. He then stood up and walked out. He repeated this commitment to the surreal at the 2019 FIFA Awards, delivering a speech about the science of aging cells and the gods killing humans for sport, while the likes of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo looked on in utter confusion. Do you think we left any moments off our list? Let us know in the comments. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel. Also, be sure to turn on post notifications so that you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time. Bye!